We're going to start with our European review. We're going to start with locating geographical features in Europe, and then we're going to talk about some cause effect solution of various environmental issue. Then we're going to, of course, talk about climate natural resource in Europe. We're going to talk about language, family, and religion, and we're going to compare and contrast various country, and of course, talk about which country is going to be beneficial and good for trading and which country, geographically has a bad reputation for trading. So to start with, we need to go with our number two, three, four, one. We're going to go in that order. But number two is a river that flows from north through south of Germany. This will be Rhine River. Now, there is another river that flows from west to east side. What do you think that river is? Danube River is correct. And then number three is our Ural Mountain. It's important to know that most people live in the west side of Ural Mountain because it is a warmer climate. And of course, most people work in the eastern side of the Russia because that's where all the natural resources are. Most people live in the western where it's warmer. Number four is Mediterranean Sea. And then, of course, that is Iberian Peninsula, which consists of Portugal and Spain combined. I hope you guys got this. Now, labeling the political features on the map. What country is this? Spain. What about this? Germany. Perfect. And what about this one right here? 8. Ukraine. And 7 will be Russia. Perfect. Now, next, what is the most likely cause of the scientist's strange discovery? So it says, first of all, a scientist collecting soil samples in a forest near a major city makes a startling discovery. The soil does not have a typical pH level. Examining some tree branches, she finds that the tree leaves are unhealthy and the branches are weak. When she takes a soil sample back to her lab, the scientists discovered that the soil is lacking essential nutrients, which is contributing to the poor health of the plants in the forest. So, few things we can read in this paragraph. So, first, it's talking about pH level. I did mention it in class that acid rain doesn't mean you're going to, it's like acid coming out down the rain where it's melting everything. No, it's just acidic. It's more acidic when it comes to pH level. Hopefully, you guys learn that pH level things later in science, but still, it's talking about pH level and it's talking about forest. We talked about one environmental issue that is hurting the vegetation, hurting the plants and the trees. And the answer for that, of course, will be acid rain. So now let's look at the answer choices that talk about acid rain. And we find it right there. Acid rain caused by industrial pollution. Perfect. Now let's move on to the next. Which of the following statement would best replace the letter B? So B is talking about Chernobyl nuclear disaster. But before we do B, let's talk about A and C as well. A, the cause of air pollution. We talked about cause of air pollution is very similar with acid rain. It is factory, car, buses, and of course industrial factory. Effect, decline in health such as lung cancer, and solution, stricter law when it comes to emission law and using more public transport. Now, acid rain cause, it says factory pollution mixed with rain and clouds. Effect when it comes to damaging plant, degrading stonework. The solution will of course be similar. Stricter law regarding of course factory and making sure encouraging the factories to turn more into electric. Now, when it comes to Chernobyl, it says, the cause, it says human error while performing emergency test. The effect is going to be, of course, the fact that radiation spread across Europe and that, of course, caused for people to have cancer. People had to move around. The habitat in that area was destroyed. So that will be an effect. And solution is that creating an exclusion zone where no one can live. So let's look at the answer choices. A says acid rain, so that's not even close. The acid rain is right here. B says radiation spread across Europe. Perfect. But let's read more. C says forests became healthier than they had been. That's not right. That's cap. There's no way that there's a nuclear disaster and the plants started, sprouting. No, that's not how it worked. D, all the nuclear power plant in the world closed. Not happening, and that did not happen. So the correct answer will be B. Now, Alexander lives in the Western Russia but travels to Eastern Russia several times a year on a business for a mining company. Alexander flies when he travels, but his company uses railroad transportation during certain part of the year. How has the geography, and climate of Russia influenced the way that Alexander lives and does business? So, of course, few things to talk about Russia. Russia land is what? Permafrost is frozen because the temperature is sub-zero. Now, because of that, most people live in the western side of Russia, which make it better for them to live in. But most of the natural resources are in the eastern side. So people need to travel to the eastern side to work, but go back to the western side to live. So let's see which one of these have the answer choices. A. Western Russia has milder climate than the Eastern Russia, which makes it more pleasant to live in. However, many of the Russia's valuable natural resources are located in the Eastern Russia. That's it. Perfect. Let's go over B and C to see why it's wrong. Eastern Russia has milder climate than Western Russia. We stop right there. That's cap. It's not. What about C? Western Russia is not suited to agriculture, which makes it difficult to live there. Eastern Russia does not have access to ocean shipping lane, which makes it difficult to do business there. C is a very tricky answer choice, but it is not C because we understand western side of Russia is way milder, and western side of Russia, if you go even a little bit closer, is European plain, which is one of the most arable places in Europe. So the correct answer will be A. Now, quick question: what does arable mean? Good for farming. Perfect. All right. Which is the best reason for the United Kingdom's population density being much higher than Russia's population density? A. So first of all, what is talking about population density? Population density is talking about people living in the same place. A lot of people living in one specific place. So population is dense. Again, I think you guys learned density yet already. Something being more dense, more heavy. So now let's go over. So it's talking about Russia population. Okay. A. Russia has much more land, therefore has bigger population density. B. Russia has more valuable natural resources that are easily available. That's cap. It's not easily available. C. Russia's mild climate. Russia definitely does not have mild climate, so that is not going to be correct. And then D. Russia's harsh climate makes much of Russia's territory uninhabitable. The correct answer will be D. Most of Russia, we talked about 90% of the Russia's soil is frozen. So only 10% of the land is habitable. So that is why Russia's population is very dense because everyone live in that one area. Number 14, best describe the language spoken in the dark shaded region. Before we talk about this, let's talk about all the languages. One, the Romance language. Romance language, I told you to start with Spanish. And then from Spanish, what language is similar to Spanish? French, Italian, Portuguese. Beautiful. Then what about Germanic? Germanic, of course, we have German. And then, of course, the beautiful English. Then Slavic, I told you guys to think about cold country and the two cold country that we talked about, Russia and Ukraine. So now, when we're talking about language spoken in the dark shaded region, we can see Spain, Portugal, Italy, France. That's Romance language. So let's see. A, the language spoken here are based on Latin. That would be definitely correct because we talked about how Latin come from, Romans language come from Roman Empire, Latin, and we also even made a connection Latin America because They speak Latin language, Portuguese, Spanish, things like that. So, of course, the correct answer will be A. 15. How would geography lead to the diversity of European language? The answer will be okay. Let's talk about the answer. I think it's very important for us to talk about this. We're going to learn about this next when we talk about history, but let's talk about this right now. A. Cultures were separated by political boundaries. B. Cultures were separated by physical feature. C. Cultures required different natural resource. D. Culture refused to interact with each other. So let's think about that. What define a language? Like what define people speaking different language? You are in Russia, you speak Russian. You're in Ukraine, you speak Ukrainian. You go to France, you speak French. You go to Italy, you speak Italian. So what is that? That is a political boundary. Each country have different language. So that would be A. Cultures are separated by political boundary. 16. All right. Rachel practiced Judaism and Omar practiced Islam. They both want to go to a place where they can worship with other people who practice the same religion. Where should Rachel and Omar go? All right. Few things to talk about. Rachel practiced Judaism. So let's talk about the founder of Judaism, Abraham, the Holy Book, Torah. Where do they go for church? Synagogue or temple? What about Omar? Omar practiced Islam, the founder. Muhammad, Holy Book, the Quran, and then, of course, the place of worship. Where do they go for church? It's a mosque. So, which one of this is talking about mosque? And of course, Judaism has one or two, right? Synagogue or temple. So, let's look at that. Which one of them is talking about Rachel going to synagogue and Omar going to mosque? A, church is not correct. Rachel and Omar should both go to mosque. Nope. Rachel should go to church. Nope. Rachel should go to synagogue and Omar should go to a mosque. That would be correct. And guys, that's it. That is the end of the review. Matter of fact, let's review a few more things. First of all, give me a cause effect solution of any environmental issue. If you had any of these, you'll be good. So make sure you know how to say your cause, effect, and solution of environmental issue. And the code for this, yeah, the code for this video will be wisdom. You tell me wisdom, I got you a little candy. Other than that, what country is good for trading? Germany or United Kingdom? Why Germany? Because they're near a lot of countries, for sure, and they have Rhine River and Danube River. Great. What about United Kingdom? Why? Because they're an island, making them easily accessible everywhere in the world. And then why is Russia bad for trading? Because 90% of the land is frozen, only 10% is available, and most of the land is frozen, making their trade extremely hard. They need to trade by railroad. But guys, that's it. I really hope this was an easy review. Make sure you know the countries and things like that. If you don't know any of the specific topic, just watch the video for the specific topic. I already posted the map and location, climate, natural resource review video, so this should be enough. I hope you guys do good on your first test. It should be good. As long as you watched this video twice, you will do wonderful. All right. Have a good day.